morning and welcome to the Interreg Europe webinar series on project development. These series are dedicated to the ones who are preparing project application to apply for Interreg Europe and to request for co-financing to their interregional cooperation project. This week we are covering various topics. We were talking on Monday about project partnership. Yesterday we were addressing project methodology. Today we will be talking about the finances, and tomorrow we will continue with the communication. It's great to see you all now coming to our webinar, and we will first of all check a little bit what is the agenda of today for today's webinar. So as today we are covering the topic of the finances, we will be talking about the management, the budget and the finances today. And as you can see from the agenda, there will be several videos we will be showing to you, and after each video we will have the Q&A sessions live here with the studio with me and my colleagues. You need to know how to ask the questions, and for this we have a tool, Slido. If you go on Slido and type on the browser slido.com/interregeurope or just slido.com and enter the hashtag interregeurope, you will see in front of you a page, and via this page you can submit your questions you have related to the finances, to the budget, to the management, the topics we are discussing today. So now you know where to ask and how to ask the questions. You can see that for this webinar we are using the tool Zoom. We are recording the session. We will be sharing the videos and also all support materials related to this topic, such as the presentation and also the videos
Hello,
we are
my name is Ramona.
We are showing today. So no worries if you are not attentive or you want to review the content once more, you will be able to do it, as all material will be published very soon on our website. And as you're participating this webinar today, you will be also receiving an email with all the materials from today's webinar and also from the other webinars dedicated to the project development. Now, as you can imagine, for this webinar, I'm not alone. By the way, my name is Irma and I'm Communication Unit Coordinator. I'm host for today. Together with me, I have several colleagues, and I would like to show also the faces who are the colleagues who are behind the scenes. So first of all, it's communication team. It's Petra, Mia, Josephine behind the scenes, and I would like they turn on the cameras and say hello to you. So they are controlling everything what is happening behind the scenes. And we also have Ramona and Anna from our finance team. Those two ladies play a very important role. Good morning to you. They are answering your questions via the chat. And that's not all. We have Ilaria together with me. She's in the studio and she will be answering the questions submitted via Slido Live. Good morning, Ilaria. Great. So now you see who is with you today. You know how to ask the questions. You probably also see that in the Zoom we have a chat, and via this chat box you can also send various messages. But we would like to ask you to separate. If it's a question, then submit it via the Slido, and if it's a generic remark or you want something related to have technical things related to the webinar, then you can post it in the chat. And the first also question I would like to be eager to know, if you can just say us hello in the chat and also tell us from which country you are from, so that we can see that we are not indeed, we have this feeling that we are not alone. I see that from Belgium, from Romania, there are participants joining us. During our webinar, we will be also asking some questions to you via the polls, and indeed we have prepared the first one. with few questions to ask. We want to ask and to know if you participated in other lead applicant webinars this week. And the second question for you, if you're already working on your project application, if you already started logged in into our portal and started to work to start to fill in all the sections. Indeed that are needed to be filled in order and completed in order to submit this application by the deadline. And deadline indeed is approaching. It's 31st of May for the first call of proposals for our program, 12 midday Central European time. Yes, I can see that many of you already answered to the questions of the poll, and I think we can check the results. And I'm very glad to see that several of you who are joining the webinar today were with me on Monday to attend the project partnership webinar. 32%, so 77 told that you were with me on Tuesday, yesterday, talk about the methodology, and several of you, like indeed 30%, more than 30% were on both days. And for 30, it's the first webinar of the week. For the ones for whom it's the first webinar of the week, you already heard that we will be sharing materials from the other webinars. So in case you would like to check the materials, you will be able to do it. And indeed, it's also something we want to encourage you to do. It's really good if you're working on the project application to check in details what tips are given today. Indeed, it's also a bit of a summary of the project manual, because during those webinars, we really emphasize the most important things you need to keep in mind when preparing your project application. And the second question we asked was if you are already working on your project application, and we can see that 35% of the ones who are attending today say that they started to work on it with the project partners, and another 35 say not yet but about to start, and others say that they still need further assistance. And we have also some people saying that they are not planning to apply during this first call. Indeed, it's not a bad idea to start in advance to check the information about the program, and for the ones who did not start yet to check the application form but plan to submit it by the 31st of May. We would like to encourage you then to log into the system and start working on the application form. In order to prepare a qualitative application, you need time, and you have to dedicate time for this. Great. Thank you for telling us where you stand. Thank you for also greeting us in the chat. I can also see that in the Slido there are also some questions submitted, which we will be taking up. And now we will start with the first video, where my colleague Ramona Tanasa will present you indeed the information, the general principles on the budget, on designing your project budget. So let's watch together this first video.
Hello, my name is Ramona. In the following minutes, I will give you general information to help you prepare the budget of your project. If you got this far, then I assume you already have identified your project idea and the partners that you will work with to take on your common challenge. Now, the activities that you jointly define should be the foundation that you build your budget on. On a general level, you should know that an Interreg Europe project usually receives an ERDF co-financing of 1 up to 2 million euros. This budget correlates with the dimension of the partnership, the duration of the project, and the activities and responsibilities allocated to each of the partners. Ideally, they should all have a say in the preparatory stage of the project, so make sure to involve them ever since the beginning. There are several types of partners that will participate to your project. They will have individually allocated budgets based on their roles. These are aspects that will influence the budget. It is no surprise that among the project partners, the lead partner, the appointed lead partner, usually has the largest share of the budget. This is mainly due to the fact that it also has to coordinate and ensure the overall project management. An advisory partner will not address any policy instrument. However, it is most probably that they will perform cross-cutting tasks. These tasks reflect their expertise and interest in the policy field. This means that they also will have individually allocated budget. So this type of partner will also have allocated budget correlated to this special role. In cases where more partners address the same policy instrument, savings are expected at partner level because responsibilities in relation to the policy instrument are shared. Depending on the legal status of the EU project partner, the ERDF co-financing rate disbursed by the Interreg Europe program in this programming period is of 80% for the public bodies and the bodies governed by public law and 70% for the private non-profit bodies. Interreg Europe program is open to potential partners from Norway and Switzerland as well. They are not eligible to receive ERDF funding, but their national authorities pre-allocated funds to support their direct participation in our program. Norwegian partners may receive co-funding of up to 50% of their budget. Swiss partners need to contact their national point of contact in order to get detailed information about the Swiss funding opportunities. The remaining 30 or 20% must be provided by the partners themselves, either from their own budget or from other sources that can be either public or private. In any case, a partner declaration is required in order to demonstrate their commitment to provide their own contribution. A project's budget is organized following 6 cost categories. A successful application will receive an additional lump sum to cover the preparation costs. The cost categories are the subject of a specifically video designed for you, so I will not get into details here. However, I will spoil the surprise my colleague has for you. We fully embraced the simplification efforts, and office and administration and travel accommodation cost categories will be reported on flat rates of 15% applied to the staff cost category. As in the previous program, there is no request to further distribute the budget on components or work packages. There is also no possibility to report share cost on activities among the project partners. Only the contracting partner will budget, actually pay, and report 100% of the expenditure of joint benefit. A new feature of our program that stems from the new regulation is that VAT is eligible irrespective if it is or not deductible for the partner organization. Even if a lot has changed for the better or for the simpler, we still have costs that we will not accept and you should not include in your budget. We specifically refer to in-kind contributions. So, the provision of works, goods, services, land or real estate for which no cash payment has been made, such as unpaid voluntary work, are not eligible. I believe that we can all agree that staff costs of personnel working in one of the partner institutions are not unpaid work. So this expenditure is safe and belongs to the staff cost category. Our communication team will support the projects in this programming period as well. You will not need to plan budget for the project website, the project's main visuals, or the design of the poster. Your communication strategy or plan should not include also gifts or giveaways, prizes or awards, as they are not eligible in the Interreg Europe program. Your financial reports will be verified by independent controllers. For some of the partners, the national authorities will provide these services for free, but in other countries, the project partners will have to pay for the verification of expenditure. This cost item is eligible and should be included in your budget. Country-specific information is available on our website, so make sure to check it. Your spending plan depends on the activity plans in the application form. If an activity is carried out close to the end of the reporting period, the related payment may only be possible in the next semester. The costs should therefore be budgeted in the following reporting period. The project spending plan is important because the monitoring activity, our monitoring activity, is based on it throughout the project implementation. You should plan carefully your spending plan in the application form because if you fail to comply with it, then the budget may be decommitted and you may lose part of the funding. Most often, we see that spending of projects starts slowly and increase over the semesters. Now you have the general framework to help you prepare the budget of your project. Thank you for watching. I do hope that you found this information both useful and helpful. Good luck with your proposal.
Great. Now you heard from our colleague Ramona the main principles on how to you need to take into consideration when constructing your project budget. I would like to welcome my colleague Ilaria to the studio. Good morning, Ilaria.
Good morning, everybody.
I'm sure that you, as myself, hope that participants listened and very well to the video. So we prepared 2 questions indeed to check how well they understood the information presented in the video. Are you eager to discover?
Yes, please. I'm very interested to know if participants have their answer to these questions we prepared for them.
Yes. So we launched now a poll and ask our participants to answer to 2 questions. First question is, what are the co-financing rates applicable in the new Intra-Europe program? And you can choose one of the answers. It's one answer is 85% for all partners, 85% for public partners, and 75% for private non-profit. Or the third answer is 80% for public partners and 70% for private non-profit partners. And there is also a second question, if will you need to budget costs for the project's website and the logo? And there are only 2 simple answers, yes and no. Yes, so participants are answering to those 2 questions very actively, and I think soon we will be ready to display the results. And Larry, it will be then you telling us which of those answers is correct. Yes, I can see. I think we are ready to display the results. Yes. So we can see that to the first question, it's 84% of participants have chosen the answer, which is that co-financing rates applicable in the new Intra-Europe program are as following. It's 80% for public partners and 70% for private non-public partners.
Yes, Irma, I am very happy to see this result because this is indeed the right question. These are the co-financing rate of the Interreg Europe program now, and they changed compared to the previous program. So yes, indeed, this is the correct answer.
And we also have answers to the second question, which sounded as following. Will you need a budget cost for the project website and the logo? 31% told us yes, and 69% tell us no. So which is the correct answer?
So indeed, the majority chose the right answer in this case as well. No, you don't have to budget costs for the website and the logo because these tools will be provided by the program.
Yeah, great. So now we know the correct answers to the 2 questions we had about the budget, and we will check the Slido. On the Slido, we have questions submitted sent to us by our webinar participants, and I see that it's several questions indeed are submitted. So we will be now answering them with you, and it's a very nice question indeed. I think for the start, Roxana addressed to us. She's asking, are there any changes in budget comparing previous Interreg period and the current period? So what indeed are the novelties our program is presenting in terms of budget finances?
Yes, so thanks, Roxana, for this question, because I think it gives us really the opportunity to highlight what is new compared to the past. I would say just in general, the principle we applied in general for the program, but also on the budget is evolution, not revolution, meaning that there are some changes compared to the past, but the main principles still remain the same. The principle that should guide you in the design of your budget, and also the average project budget, which we expect normally for an Interreg Europe project, which is around from 1 million to 2 million euros ERDF. But there are some new things, especially what we try to do, we try to simplify further the lives of the beneficiaries. There is more simplification. For example, there will be a flat rate for travel and accommodation cost, and you will learn more about this in the following videos. The co-financing rates changed slightly, and this we explained this already. Also, there will be more simplification for staff cost, because there will be only one method possible, and not the coexistence of different options that we had in the past, and that caused some issues sometimes for the beneficiaries. So, and you will learn more about these details in the coming videos and during this webinar today. But in general, yes, there are some new features, but I would say the fundamental principles remain. So evolution, not revolution.
Then we have a question for you, Ilaria, related to the pandemic we have. This question indeed appeared already yesterday during our webinar, and it sounds as following: how can we adapt work plan if budget if something unexpected situations arise, such as the pandemic?
Yes, well, it's true that we of course know that during the lifetime of the project, many things can change and can have an impact on how you designed your project at the beginning. And we know it even better now, because after the pandemic that hit very hard our project had to adapt to this unexpected situation. But what I want to highlight, that the program offers tools that will allow you during the project implementation to adapt to this kind of situations. Of course, the activities can be adjusted if something unexpected happens, and there is also the possibility to adjust your budget, to reallocate your budget. If you have also to, of course, change your activities. There is a flexibility rule that will be applied on the budget. You will have the opportunity to shift budget between the cost categories and between the partners. Up to 20% of the partner budget can be shifted and can be shifted from one partner to the other. You will find the details how this rule works in the program manual. It is improved, let's say, compared to the past, because you will now have a bit more flexibility, because there is no ceiling in the shift between the cost category, but only a 20% limit for the partner budgets. But I think what is important for you to focus on, and now that you're preparing the application, is really to prepare the application and the budget consistently with your activities. And then don't worry during the project implementation if something unexpected happens. You will have the opportunity to adjust your work plan, to adjust your budget. The JS officers monitoring your project will also help you in this process. So don't worry that this will be possible and should be fairly easy for you to do.
Yeah, thank you, Ilaria. In the video, our colleague Ramona was talking that it's understandable that the lead partner usually has a higher budget than the other partners in the project. So Saranto is asking us a question. He would like to. They would like to clarify which percentage of the budget can be counted for the lead partner. Do you have any advice on this or recommendations?
Well, there is not really a percentage of the budget fixed to be dedicated to the lead partner. This will really depend on your project activities, on your partnership configuration, how many partners are in the project. Of course, what we see in our project is that usually the partner, the budget of the lead partner is the highest one. But we cannot really tell you which percentage of the budget should be dedicated to the lead partner. It will really depend on your project activities. For example, if other partners support the lead partner in some of the tasks related to the coordination, some partners sometimes are responsible for the communication coordination of the program, of the project. So it really depends on your project, and there is no fixed percentage at program level for this.
Yeah. And Ilaria, what about the advisory partner? Samuel is asking us what budget the advisory partner should have.
Well, I think again, there is not a specific budget for the advisory partner. What we can tell you is that it will really depend on the role they have on the project. For example, sometimes we see the advisory partner comes because of their specific expertise on the topic of the project, and sometimes they are leading some of the cross-cutting tasks of the project, like the exchange of experience activities and or the communication activities, and this also has to be reflected in their budget. So it really depends on what their role is. They will also have less involvement on certain activities because they will not address any policy instrument, and this will have also an impact on their budget. For example, in the follow-up phase, the activities will be mainly carried out at regional level, so they might have, let's say, less involvement in the follow-up phase, and this should be also appear in the budget.
Ilaria suggests that we take 3 more questions from the ones we see now on the screen of the start questions, and then we will be watching a detailed video and learn about the details on the cost categories. So the next question for you sounds as following. It's Anna asking, could we contract staff specifically for the project within the project funds?
Yes, it is possible. You can certainly use your staff cost budget to contract people that will work on the project if it is needed.
Yeah. Could you also tell, it's another Anna asking, what is the difference between the follow-up and phase 2?
I think these questions come from someone who was involved in our program in the past, because it's true that now we call what was called previously phase 2 is now called the follow-up phase. And the main difference is that in the past we were rather strict with the activities that could be carried out in phase 2. They were really predefined by the program. So projects didn't have a lot of flexibility in terms of what they could do in phase 2. They really had to stick to these predefined activities. Now with the follow-up phase, the focus would still be on mainly on monitoring the results you have achieved during the core phase. So the activities will be mainly carried out at regional level, so checking how the implementation is going in the region. But there could still be interregional learning activities during this phase. So the interregional learning could still continue. This is really up to the projects to design, let's say, what activities they want to carry out in this phase. And this, of course, will also have an impact on your spending plan. When you plan your spending, you will really have to make it consistent with the activities in the follow-up phase. So what we saw in the past is that the spending was really going down and had a big drop in phase 2. Now the spending in the follow-up phase will really depend on the activities you carry out in this phase. We could imagine it will be there will be a drop of the spending, but maybe the spending will still remain relatively high if you still, for example, planning planning to continue a little bit the interregional exchange. And so the intensity of activities will still be relatively high.
Ilaria, already answering to this question, you touched the topic of the spending plan, and it's Sebastian who is asking us, when planning our spending plan, when we should plan the peak of expenditure.
Yes, well, as Ramona said in the video, usually what we see is that projects start with a low expenditure at the beginning, and then the level of expenditure increases over the semesters, and it reaches a peak towards the end. Now, it will really depend on the activities that you will plan during the follow-up phase. We could imagine that you will reach the peak at the end of the core phase or at the beginning of the follow-up phase, if in the follow-up phase the activities will be really limited, or if the intensity of activity is still rather good, let's say, in the follow-up phase, then we could imagine the peak could arrive a little bit later towards the end of the project. But just keep in mind for the spending plan really to make it consistent with the activities, also with the payments that will be done in a reporting period, because if, for example, an activity is scheduled towards the end of the period, then the payment might only happen in the next semester. So you should take this into account as well when planning your spending plan. But in general, keep in mind the activities, keep it consistent with the activities, and also realistic, meaning that probably it will have, let's say, an increasing path, starting low and then increasing over the semesters.
Ilaria, we can see one more question on the screen, which is related to the preparation costs. So we will pick it up after the video, because the next video we have, it's about the cost categories, and it's our colleague Ségolène who will be talking about the preparation costs, staff costs, office and administration expenditure, and travel and accommodation. So let's watch the video about and learn about those first cost categories and details.
How to plan your project budget. Hello everyone, my name is Ségolène and I'm going to talk about the different cost categories available in your budget. So if you want to know more, you can have a look at our program manual, section 6.1, 6.2 and 6.3. So there are 6 different cost categories in addition to the lump sum of preparation costs in Interreg Europe budget. In this first video, I will talk about preparation cost, staff cost, office and administrative expenditure, and travel and accommodation. So let's get started with preparation costs. Preparation costs are all the costs that you need to prepare your application form, and it will be directly included in the lead partner's budget. It is a lump sum of 17,500 euros per project. This means that would be 14,000 euros in case the lead partner is from an EU member state, and then it will be 8,750 euros if the lead partner is from Norway. But then you might wonder, what should you do and how will you get the lump sum? Well, it is easy. The lump sum will be received only for approved projects. Then it will be directly included in the lead partner's budget, and it has to be shared among the partnership depending on the involvement of each partner during the preparation of the application form. You can see that there will be only a budget for this cost category in the lead partner's budget. You should also have in mind that no supporting document will be needed when reporting. Now, next cost category is staff costs. So staff costs usually represent the largest share of the budget, and indeed, because project partners are usually the main beneficiaries of the project. So it refers to the gross employment costs, and only for staff members employed by the partner institution and directly working on the project. In order to plan your staff cost budget, you should have in mind the following question. So, which project activities will be carried out and how many employees will be needed to carry them out? Then, which percentage of their time will they need to dedicate to the project activities? And what is their monthly gross employment cost? You should also have in mind the project duration, which is 4 years for all, and with the 3 months closure. So then for the calculation of staff cost, there will be only one possible method. it will be with fixed percentage. So this means that the project employee could either be working at 100% at full time, or it can also be working at part-time, but with a fixed percentage. Let's take an example. So in practice, a partner organization could decide to have 2 employees working on the project. And we'll say that each employee has a gross employment cost of 3,500 euros. So if the first employee will be working at 60% on the project, then the gross employment cost would be 2,100 euros per month. Then if the second employee will be working at only 30% on the project, the gross employment cost will be reduced as we multiply per 30% and we get 1,050 euros per month. So that would mean for this partner a monthly staff cost budget of 3,150 euros. Then you can multiply it by 48 months to get the total project duration, and we have a staff cost budget of 151,200 euros. Now, next cost category is office and administrative expenditure. For this cost category, it concerns all the general administrative expenses of the partner organization. So it can be for office rents or stationery or postal services, for example. But you can find a list of all the detailed costs within this cost category in the program manual. So these costs are covered by a flat rate of 15% of staff costs, and they are directly calculated in the application form, so automatically. So what you need to make sure is not to plan any cost in this cost category within another cost category. So now, to finish for this first video, we'll talk about travel and accommodation. This cost category includes costs such as travel, accommodation, of course, but it can also be for meals or daily allowances or visas. And it is only for travel and accommodation of the staff members. So the travel and accommodation costs for associated policy authorities or stakeholders should be planned under external expertise and services. As you might have noticed, there is a change for the travel and accommodation cost comparison with the previous programming period. So indeed, now travel and accommodation costs can be covered by a 15% flat rate of staff cost. However, some partners can also decide in the application form to choose the real cost basis, but they will have to provide a duly justified reasons and explanation. So, in practice, in the application form, all the partner will have to choose between the flat rate and the real cost basis. And if partner chooses real cost basis, they will have to explain, because the flat rate is the option recommended by the program. On our side, we expect that almost all partners will go for the flat rates, and only for specific geographical situations, such as the outermost regions, that real cost basis would be chosen. Why should you go for the flat rate? First of all, the 15% flat rate is in the regulation. Then, the program also carried out statistical analysis on the real travel and accommodation costs reported by the partner from the previous projects, to see whether a 15% flat rate would be enough to cover the travel and accommodation cost. And indeed, this statistical analysis showed that a 15% flat rate would be enough for almost all partners. Then it is also simpler. This is a real simplification. So when you will be preparing your application form, you won't have to estimate the travel and accommodation cost, as they will be automatically calculated. And then when reporting, it will be also less time on the control, and no supporting documents will need to be provided. So that's why, with all these advantages, we expect almost all partners to go for the flat rates. Thank you very much for watching this video, and we invite you to watch a second video to learn more about the remaining cost categories.
Great. So you learned now about the first 4 cost categories we have, and Ségolène invited us all to watch the second video, which we will be watching indeed with you. After the first questions we will be taking related to the current budget lines. And Ilaria, just before we started to watch the video, we had a question related to the preparation cost. Segolen explained us that the preparation cost, there is a specific amount of the budget which will appear in the lead partners budget line. But the question of Magali is if it's allocated to the lead partner. It's evident that all partners were involved equally in the writing, so can those costs be split?
Yes, the reply is yes. Actually, we would expect that the lump sum is shared equally between the partners according to their involvement in the preparation of the application. So this is exactly what we would expect from the projects approved, that they share the lump sum with the partners. We also recommend that the details how the lump sum is shared are included in the project partnership agreement. So indeed, yes, this is what we would expect.
Ilaria, our colleague Segolen was also talking about the travel costs, and we have prepared one question to all our webinar participants. So I would like to launch a poll again and to ask the question to our participants related to the traveling costs. And the question sounds as following: will you need to provide all the travel tickets if the travel and accommodation for travel and accommodation costs, flat rate applies? So in case there is a flat rate option, would you need to provide all the travel tickets? Yes or no? Yeah, our participants are very active in answering to this question, and let's have a look to the answers. So, Ilaria, 88%, 89% of the ones who answer tell that no, they don't need to answer to provide all the travel tickets in case in case the flat rate applies. Is it correct?
It is correct. So no travel tickets to be collected, to be provided if the flat rate applies. So this is really why we think this option should be chosen by almost all partners, if not all. That is our hope, at least. We really think this is the new simplification measure of this new period. It comes from the regulation. It's backed up by statistical analysis at program level, and it will simplify your lives. So really, yes, this is the correct answer, and that's why we hope you will choose the flat rate.
In the slide, Ilaria, I see that Sebastian has a question related to this. Indeed, he refers to another option, to the flat. In case of the flat rate, what type of justification would you expect for choosing real costs? This you already explained. No, the question is about the real cost. So in case the real cost option is chosen, what documentation then would be provided? Could you clarify this?
Yes, so basically in the application form, you will have to select if you go for the flat rate or if you select real cost. And if you select real cost, there will be a box popping up where you have to explain why you select this option. The type of justification we would expect is really limited to exceptional situations, exceptional geographical situations, such as the outermost regions. So I would really like to underline that we expect all partners, basically almost all partners, to go for the flat rate, except those, for example, outermost regions that have much higher travel costs, and for them it could be relevant not to go for the flat rates. But for all the others, we would really expect partners to go for the simplest option and go for the flat rate.
Konstantina has also a question related to the travel and accommodation costs. It's about the stakeholders, how it will be calculated, this amount for the stakeholders, and can the stakeholders be profit organizations?
Yes, so the travel and accommodation costs for stakeholders, they are actually covered by another cost category. It's the external expertise and services cost categories. And I think Ségolène in the next video will explain you more about this. In general, you have to plan a budget for the stakeholders traveling to the events. You should keep in mind to, let's say, to be realistic in the sense what type of involvement you can expect from your stakeholders in terms of traveling, and then count the number of trips that they would be traveling to, and then include this in the budget. The type of stakeholders could be profit organizations. Yes, stakeholders are basically the ones that are involved in and that are relevant for the policy instruments that the partner is addressing. So yes, any type of organization that is relevant for the policy instrument and that is relevant for them and interesting for the partner that they travel to the project event could indeed be involved in the stakeholder group and be stakeholders.
Gabova is asking, what about can we budget events, stakeholder meetings for monitoring, workshops, etc. in year 4 of the project? Any limit as to the number of events, and can they be both offline and online?
You can indeed budget costs for these events in your budget. Normally what we see in the budget is that partner budget costs for the organization of these events, like costs for the catering, for the room rental, for the transportation of participants in the budget line, external expertise and services. And I think Ségolène will tell you a bit more about this in the next video. There is not a strict limit as to the number of events. It really depends on your project. What we normally see is that there is at least one event, for example, one partner meeting per semester. But this really depends on your project, on your needs. What we usually ask is to keep it feasible, so that you keep it manageable, the number of events you plan for your project. And they can be both offline and online. What we have seen in the pandemic, of course, is that a lot of projects had to take some activities online. But at the same time, we also expect that projects will meet in person. The personal meetings are still very important, especially for example, the study visits. There are certain exchange of experience activities that we don't really see that they can be replaced by online means. But of course, we also expect projects to still all the online events, but what we would see is really a combination of the two and what it makes sense for the project.
Thank you, Ilaria, for the answer. Esther is asking, for staff costs, is it possible to change the fixed percentage defined for one employee during the project?
Yes, this is possible. I think what we have seen in the current program is that whenever there was a change of tasks, for example, for the person who was involved in the project, then it was possible to change the fixed percentage. Or, for example, if there is an annual meeting with your supervisor where your tasks are redefined, are readjusted, and then this also has an impact on the project tasks, then the percentage could be adjusted if justified. And then this is always discussed also with the controller who's checking the costs.
Ilaria Laura also has a question related to staff costs. Do we need to list employees in the application form already?
No, this is not needed. When you will plan your staff cost budget, you have to have in mind, okay, how many people from my organization will work on the project, how much of their time they will dedicate to the project activities, but you will not need to list the actual employees in the application form. This is not needed.
We see that our webinar participants are very active, sending us questions, and thank you for this. Just a reminder to all of you that we are answering questions live. Ilari is answering your questions live, but also we have Ramona and Anne answering your questions in written. So, so indeed, all questions you submit are being answered, and please check Slido, because some of the questions we also answer in written. So those ones we are not picking up, answer live in this webinar. But for the answers, please check the Slido and see the written answers. Now, Ilaria, we are taking two more questions related to the video we just watched, and then we will be watching a next video to learn about the cost categories we did not yet talk about. So the two questions, the first one from Clément: what happens if we have a cost increase during the project? For example, noticeable staff cost increase after 2 years.
Okay, so this can happen, of course. As I said before, we often see projects having to adapt to unexpected circumstances. And there is a budget flexibility rule, and you can actually shift budget from one cost category to another during the project implementation. And there is no actual ceiling applying to this. There is only a 20% ceiling applied to budget reallocations among the partners. So if you have a staff cost increase, it means you will have to justify this, why you need more staff costs than initially planned. And this has to be justified, let's say, why it was needed for the project and what was needed in the context of the project implementation to have this. But if this is justified, then this will be possible, and you will only have to report this in the progress reports you will submit to the program.
And another question, Ilaria, for you. It's Catherine asking, what do you mean with no shared costs?
So what we mean with no shared cost? Well, we mean that it is not possible that partners basically share the costs of, for example, one invoice. There always have to be a sharing of responsibilities. So to give you a very concrete example, if two partners from the same region, they organize a partner meeting together, then what they can do, they can share the organization of the meeting. So for example, one partner can take care of the catering, one other partner can take care of another service, but they cannot share, for example, the same invoice. If there is one invoice for the catering, this cannot be shared, the cost split among the two partners. This is not possible. What we say to the projects is you have to share the responsibilities, you have to share the tasks, but not the actual cost item.
Thank you, Ilaria, for the answer. We will be taking more questions immediately after the second video we will watch on the cost categories. And in the second video, our colleague Ségolène will be presenting you external expertise and services, equipment, infrastructure, and work costs. So let's watch the video.
How to plan your project budget. Hello, my name is Ségolène. It is the second video on cost categories. In this video, I will talk about the external expertise and services cost category, equipment, and infrastructure and works. So let's begin with external expertise and services. Under this cost category, you should plan all the services that are needed to implement the project activities, but that come out of the partner organization. An important program recommendation to have in mind is that this cost category should not exceed more than 50% of the total budget, because the main beneficiaries of the project should remain the project partners. Then it is also important that all the costs that you plan are linked to activities planned in the work plan. So in practice, to plan your external expertise and services cost, you will have to go in section F.2 of the application form, and you will have to provide more information. First of all, you will have to indicate who is the contracting partner. Then you will also have to indicate the total amount of the service, and you will have to select among a list of predefined types of costs. If you don't know which type of cost you should select, and if you simply want to know more, then you can have a look at a dedicated video on this topic, which is available on our website. So then in practice, you will have to select a predefined type of cost, and for most of the type of cost, the description box will be pre-filled. Then if the description is editable, please be as precise as possible. So now back to more general advice. So if you have people working on the project but are not directly employed by the partner organization, then the cost should be planned under external expertise and services. We know, for example, that some partners rely on in-house staff members to implement the project activities. For these, there are two possibilities. So if the staff are working from an affiliated company who is a complete different legal entity than the partner organization, then the cost should be planned under external expertise and services. However, if by in-house you refer to staff working in an internal department of the partner organization and that there is no separation of legal entity, then the cost should be planned under staff costs. Let's move to the next cost category, which is equipment. So it is mainly equipment costs for office equipment. So it can be bought, rented or leased. It can be, for example, a laptop for a partner or some software to organize online meetings. So for the equipment cost, it should not exceed 7,000 euros per project if there is no pilot action. However, if there is a pilot action, then we understand that there can be some more specific equipment needed and the total cost can be higher. In practice, to plan your equipment cost, you will have to go in section F.3 of the application form and you will have to provide more information. So you will have to indicate who is the contracting partner and the total amount of the cost. And you will also have to select in a drop-down menu what is the type of equipment. So it can either be office equipment or pilot action. In case this is office equipment, the description box will be pre-filled, so there's no need to indicate anything else. However, if it is pilot action equipment, the description box will have to be filled with more precise information, so on the equipment needed and on the link with the pilot action activities. So now let's talk about the last cost category, which is infrastructure and works. This is a new cost category for Interreg Europe, and it can be used only when you have a pilot action planned. Based on the experience from our projects who had pilot actions, the pilot action costs could be covered by the equipment or the external expertise and services cost categories. So that's why we expect partners to use rather exceptionally this new cost category. So we expect project partners to use this cost category rather exceptionally, and it can be, for example, to finance some labor costs or materials for some small-scale infrastructures linked to the pilot activities. So you will have to provide more details in the application form. You will have to indicate who is the contracting partner and also indicate the total amount of the cost. Then in the description box, you should explain what are the materials or the labor, for example, the labor works needed for the pilot action. You should also clearly explain what is the link with the pilot activities. Thank you very much for watching this video, and we invite you also to have a look at our program manual to learn more.
So now, after watching the second video on the cost categories, we learned about external expertise and services, equipment, infrastructure and works. Ségolène also mentioned the video, additional video we have produced, where she explains in detail the categories for the external expertise and services. My colleague Josephine already shared the link to this video in our chat, so don't hesitate to consult this video in case you need more details about this budget category. Ilaria, now you are back in the studio and we will be taking again questions submitted via Slido. So let's have a look what questions we have. And I can see many interesting questions. That's great. Jordi, for example, is asking you about the pilot actions budget. Pilot actions budget is included separately as external expertise, equipment, or infrastructure. If we have internal staff costs linked to the managing the pilot action, does it have to be discriminated from the other staff costs, or can it be merged?
So in fact, the budget of the pilot action is actually integrated in your total budget. So there will be no separate budget for the pilot action in the budget. You have to take into account the budget of the pilot in your total budget. It is true that for external expertise, equipment, and infrastructure, you will have to budget the item and link it to the pilot action. So you will have to basically select the type of item pilot action and then provide a description. So in a way, we will be able to really see which costs under external expertise, equipment, and infrastructure are linked to the pilot. But for staff costs, this is not the case. So you will basically have to plan your overall staff costs and include also the staff costs that you will need to manage the pilot. So there will be no distinction from the other staff costs.
Mm-hmm. Martina was attending our webinar yesterday and submitted the question, and which was related to the budget. And I was telling to everyone that they need to wait for today so that we have experts in the studio to answer the questions related to finances. So she would like you to clarify, Ilaria, if we opt for a pilot action at midterm review, will the projects be able to apply for extra budget if needed? Could you please give more details?
Yes, this will be possible. Basically, if you apply for a pilot action in the midterm review, at the same time, this will be a moment in your project lifetime where we will also assess your budget spending. So how your project is spending the budget that was allocated to you. If you have some underspending, and it's possible to use this underspending to finance the pilot, then the underspending will be used to finance the pilot. But if you are on track with your project spending and you don't have, let's say, some savings to finance the pilot, then it will be possible to have additional funding granted to the project. The monitoring committee will decide on the pilot and will also decide, if needed, to grant the project additional funding to finance the pilot.
Another question related to the pilot actions. If more than one partner is working on a pilot action, how should we calculate the budget for the pilot and distribute the costs per partner? If partner is carrying out one pilot and also taking part in another pilot, but only in some activities, what costs are eligible?
It's true, we have in some cases maybe two partners, for example, working on a pilot action. And in that case, basically you will have to see how to share the tasks related to implementation of the pilot and then the related budget. So the calculation of the budget and the distribution of the budget of the pilot action among the partners involved in the implementation will have to be done really according to how they will share these activities, how they will share the responsibilities and their tasks to implement the pilot. So if one partner is taking care of a certain activity, then the related budget should go to this partner. So it will really depend on how you share the activities. The second part of the question, if the partner is carrying out and is taking part, also in another pilot, To be honest, I'm not sure this configuration will be possible, considering that I just want to remind you that it will only be possible to have one pilot action per region. This configuration will probably be not possible, but we would also have to see specifically how you will build your budget and your pilot. But in principle, there will be only one pilot action possible per region.
Ilaria, we also prepared a question to our participants related to the second video on cost categories we watched, and I would like to launch now a poll to ask this test question to our participants before we take the next questions from the Slido. So the question now sounds as following: which of these assumptions are not correct? And there are several statements. Equipment cost should not exceed 7,000 at the project level. External expertise and services budget should not exceed 50% of the total budget. And the third answer is most projects should budget infrastructure and work costs. Again, we can see that our participants are active and answering the questions. Probably this time they need to think a little bit more before picking up not correct answer from the three ones we propose them. Yes, I think we can stop now the answers, and we can check what answers they have chosen. So 63% of them say that most projects should budget infrastructure and works. 25% of them say that external expertise and services budget should not exceed 50% of the total budget. And 13% of them say that equipment cost should not exceed 7,000 at project level. Could you tell us which indeed answer is correct? Means which of the assumptions is not correct?
So the assumption that is not correct, not the right assumption when you look at your budget, is the third one. So most projects should not budget infrastructure and works costs, whereas the other two are indeed true. We recommend that project should not budget more than 7,000 euros of equipment costs, and also that we also recommend that the budget dedicated to external expertise and services should not exceed 50% of the total budget, because the main beneficiaries of the project activities should actually be the staff members of the partners. So indeed the third assumption is the one that is not correct. We expect really this new cost category to be used in very exceptional situations, only for pilot actions, and only if some small scale infrastructure has to be built in the context of the pilot action, but it will be really limited, really exceptional. This is what we think also based on the types of pilot actions that we financed in the past.
Related indeed to this, Roberto has a question. Could you provide some examples of infrastructure and work costs that could be financed by the program?
So to really give you some concrete examples, well, for example, if we have a project on renewable energy that want to do a pilot action in the region to test, they install some smart benches in public parks, so a bench with some interactive information on a specific topic in the park. So they have to install these smart benches. So let's say that the costs related to the works and the material for building these benches could fit the infrastructure and work category. Or for example, we had a project on sustainable transport that wanted to build a bike railway. and it was again in the context of a pilot action that they wanted to build this railway, this bike railway path, and they needed some cost to finance the installation of this railway, and so the cost related to the works and the building material for this type of activity could fall under this cost category. But again, these were very, let's say, small scale infrastructure that could be financed, and basically the program thought it was useful to introduce this cost category to be able to finance also the very specific activities and not exclude them, because they can still be relevant in the context of a pilot action.
Ilaria, Magali has a question for you. I would expect equipment costs like a laptop, etc., to be covered under office and administration costs. What is the difference?
Well, actually, a laptop is an office equipment. It's true that it's let's say it's used for the in the office, so we could think it's covered by office and administration, but no, it's really an equipment item. And if you read also what is in the regulation and the items that can be covered by the equipment budget line, then a laptop or equipment related to the office, like a printer or anything which is really a physical equipment in the office can be, and it's needed for the project implementation, can be budgeted under equipment. Under office and administration is really the general administrative expenditure at the level of the organization. It can be the maintenance of the IT system, but not the actual laptop that you buy for the project. This can be financed under the equipment budget line. But I invite you to read really carefully, if you have a doubt, also the list of the items that are covered under each budget line. They are in the program manual, and it's useful to really have a look at them, because sometimes even us, we have to go back to the list to be sure what can fit under each cost category, and it's really there in the program manual where you can find it.
I think that's a very good advice, Ilaria, you give. But as participants are there, and it's you who know all the answers, it's good also to use sometimes the shortcut. And this is what Lisa indeed is doing. And she's asking, where should she plan costs for online software for meetings, for example, Zoom?
That's a very interesting question, because it's true, as you said, Irma, we have the program manual, but sometimes it's also a matter of interpreting the rules. So cost for online software for meetings should be planned under equipment, because among the items that can be eligible under the equipment, it is mentioned the software, and specific software used for implementing the project activities, and online software is also included, should be planned under equipment.
Mm-hmm. Ilaria, we will be picking now questions related to external expertise and pilot actions. There is still some time left. So before indeed we pick those questions, I will invite now everyone to watch a video where our project partners share their experience on preparing the project application, some general indeed tips you all need to keep in mind. And after this, we will be back in the studio taking the final questions for our live Q&A session. So if you still have some questions, this should be now also the opportunity to submit those. So let's watch the video, and then we will be back in the studio to answer the last questions.
The first step to start is to start, actually. So to write at least a sentence on the paper. It's like a snowball, because when you write one sentence, then the ideas and the thoughts and suggestions, they will come into your mind. So you will build up your project within the time.
I always think about the reader. And that means cutting out of the extra poetry or jargon there might help, making it clear, like explaining to your mother what is this all about. So that usually works, because if you can explain it clearly to somebody else, then you have to be very clear about the idea you have, and vice versa. If you cannot explain it clearly, then you don't have a good idea. So be clear and simple, and also honest in what you are trying to do.
I always try to make a mental movie of the project to get an idea how it will look like. What is the first partner meeting about? Then what do you want to accomplish in the first year? So there's already kind of a mental movie playing in my head that I'm writing down in the application. So that when you start implementing the project, you play your movie. Of course, the movie always turns out different than you expected in the beginning. So you have to always take that in mind, into consideration.
So it was nice to hear from our project partners some thoughts on what they think it's important to keep in mind when preparing the project application. And I liked the comparison about the mental movie. The same applies to the budget, that you need to think what will be your budget and to plan it accordingly related to all the activities. As promised before, we are now back in the studio for the final Q&A session, and we will be picking up the questions related to external expertise, pilot actions, and other topics that are left to discuss. So the question for you, Ilaria, regarding the external expertise costs, should these costs follow the public procurement rules?
Well, yes, of course, you have to follow the public procurement rules applicable in your organization, in your region, in your country, for contracting the service you want to contract. So yes, you will have to check what these rules are whenever you are contracting an external service and make sure to comply with them.
Mm-hmm. Another question, if properly justified in the proposal and work plan, can we plan external expense for an exchange on follow-up phase semester 7? It's Jordi asking you.
Yes, it is possible, if this is justified in the proposal, to continue a little bit the exchange of experience activities at interregional level in the follow-up phase. This is basically, as I said before, one of the main differences comparing to what was called the phase 2 in the past. So it will really depend on your needs, on what it makes sense for your project. But yes, there is more flexibility on this, let's say on the program side now.
Anna is asking, should we plan external costs for drafting the action plan?
Well, this is also, this question makes me clarify also one of the differences, another difference compared to the past regarding the action plan, because those of you who followed yesterday, maybe you have heard that in this new period, only the partners that will not achieve a policy change in the core phase of the project will need to produce an action plan, will need to produce an action plan. This means that the program expectation is really that you focus on achieving this policy change in the core phase. So we don't expect you to plan any costs for drafting the action plan in your budget, because you should really aim at achieving the change in the core phase, and there should not be any need to do any action plan. if ever these needs arise because due of the circumstances you were not able to achieve this change in the core phase, and you will still need to produce an action plan, this action plan will really be a rather simple, straightforward document integrated in the progress support. So we don't expect that you will need really an external support to produce this. You should be able to do this using your internal resources. It will be very simple, straightforward, focused. No, you should not plan external costs for the action plan at this stage, because this is not really in line with this rationale.
Ilaria Magali is asking, is there a minimum or maximum amount for pilot actions?
There is indeed a program recommendation on what should be the minimum budget and the maximum budget for pilot action. It should range from 40,000 euros and to up to 120,000 euros. This is a recommendation that is also visible in the manual, and it's really based on the experience we had with pilot actions in the previous program. So what we saw our projects did and budget for pilot action, and it's it is a recommendation that we put to give you also a reference what you should plan in terms of budget for pilot actions.
Yeah, another question related to the pilot actions. For pilot actions, do we have to include the relevant cost in the project budget, or we have to establish and to submit a separate budget for the pilot?
No, you don't have to submit a separate budget for the pilot action. It will be integrated in the in your total budget. So you have to take into account the budget of the pilot under each cost category, and it will be part of your total budget. Only for specific cost category, for example, external expertise, equipment, and if relevant infrastructure and works, you will have to provide further details on the costs you planned for the pilot, but it will still be integrated in the overall budget. So there will be no separate budget specifically in the application form for the pilot. It will be part of your overall budget.
Katrine is asking, is it allowed that an external expert is responsible for the roles of project financial management?
Yes, it is possible if you justify why you need an external expert to take over the financial management or the coordination. If you need support from external experts to deliver these tasks, this is possible. You should indicate this in the application form. Of course, we expect always the staff members to be the main beneficiaries of the project activities, but if you need external help to deliver the coordination tasks or the financial management, this is possible.
Barbara is asking, under the new EU regulation, VAT is always eligible even when it is recoverable. Could you confirm?
I do, I confirm. This is really clearly stated in the regulation. It was a simplification measure the Commission really wanted to have VAT eligible no matter what. So yes, the regulation is very clear. Commission confirmed as well that this is the case.
Rita is asking us, beside the budget foreseen for advisory partner for its involvement in the project activities as partner, can the advisory partner be given a specific task like responsible for exchange of experience and therefore receive an extra budget for that?
The advisory partner can indeed be responsible for a specific task. This is what we often see for the advisory partner. They could be responsible for the exchange of experience, as you mentioned. This is possible, and then of course this will have to be reflected in their budget. I'm not sure what you mean receiving an extra budget. if the advisory partner is responsible for this task, then their budget should be built according to this. So they should have budget available to deliver this task. At the same time, the advisory partner will not be so much involved in other activity. They will not address a policy instrument. They will not have to deliver maybe so many activities at regional level. So basically their budget should reflect also this role, and this should be visible in their budget setup, that they are responsible for the cross-cutting task, but at the same time they don't have other activities going on in the region.
Ilaria, what activities are acceptable as preparation costs?
Well, the preparation cost lump sum covers all the activities that are linked to the preparation of the application. So the time you spend on filling in the application and working with the partners, if you are the lead applicant, to define their needs, to fill in the budget, the proposal. So anything that is related to the preparation of the proposal is covered by the lump sum. Again, it is a lump sum, so we will not ask you to submit any document to prove anything. So it will be simply allocated to the budget of the lead partner and granted to the projects that are approved with the first progress support.
Mm-hmm. Nicolina, I would like to clarify that we clarify, what do you mean when you say you have to fill in and predefine contractor within these categories? Do you have public procurement rules in mind?
Okay, thanks for this question, because it makes it gives me the opportunity to clarify something. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. We don't ask you to define the contractor, so the service provider, in the application form. No, you don't have to put this, because of course this is you shouldn't do it, because the actual service provider should be only contracted at a later stage and following all the public procurement rules. What we ask you to indicate is which partner is contracting this service in the application form. So you will have to indicate simply which partner is contracting the service, and then select the item and provide a description if needed. But you should definitely not indicate any contractor service provider in the application form. This would not be in line with public procurement rules.
Nicolina has a question. Can we justify real costs for technical travel and accommodation if the salaries in your country are less than EU average, and 15% flat rate would not be enough to cover all planned travel and accommodation costs, including daily allowances?
Yes, well, on this question, I can only highlight once again that based on the statistical analysis we carried out at program level on the ratio between travel and accommodation costs and staff costs reported by our project, what we saw is that the 15% should really be enough to cover the real travel costs of our partners. But what I also want to highlight is that this is really a simplification measure. I mean, it's in the regulation. We often complain with the Commission, with the EU institutions, that we don't do enough to make things easy, to simplify the life of our beneficiaries. And this is really the opportunity to go for the simplest solution. Think also of the time that you would save, that you will not have to collect all the travel documents, all the little metro bus tickets to justify your cost. So really think if all this simplification will compensate what you may lose, and we are not convinced based on the analysis we carried out that you will lose anything, but if at all, the efforts you will not spend on collecting all the documents, on checking, on going back and forth with your controller on these tiny little things will really compensate any loss, if at all, you might have. This is really what we recommend you to do, to change a little bit your mindset, try to go for the simplest option, and I think you will be then happier when you will have to implement the project.
Thank you, Ilaria, for this answer. We are almost at the end of our webinar. So my colleagues will launch now a poll where you can leave feedback about our webinar. Then we will be taking 2 last questions, Ilaria, and before summarizing all and closing our webinar. So for everyone now, please leave us feedback on this webinar so that we can know how well we are doing and also to improve our upcoming events. And the last questions we are taking now, information for you again to remember that if you see there are still some questions, the colleagues in the chat will answer those. And if you go back to the Slido, you will see the record of the questions answered. So the last questions for you, the final questions for you, Ilaria. Clément is asking where and how to budget the travel costs for partnerships with no staff cost and no budget.
Well, it's true that if the partner has no staff cost at all, then the flat rate doesn't seem to be a good option because there will be no staff budget where to apply the flat rate. But to be honest, this question makes me a bit wonder because what we expect from partners is to have a staff cost budget in all the time, because it's really important that the staff members of the organization are involved in the project activities and are the main recipients of really the benefits of the exchange of experience among within the project. So when we see a partner with no staff costs, we really wonder what is their commitment on the project, and we would really need to see why it is the case, if there is administrative constraints, if there is an issue really on how to report the staff costs. I mean, we would really be focusing on why the partner has no staff cost budget and if this difficulty can be overcome. Because we really want to see if the staff members of the partner to be involved in the project and to be the main beneficiaries of the project activities.
Thank you, Ilaria. And now just to summarize all we were talking about, what is indeed the last thing, what is the most important thing for you that everyone needs to know, to remember when designing the project budget?
So I would say really start with your activities and be consistent with them the moment you plan your budget. Be realistic also. Focus on your needs, on the partner's needs, involve them in the preparation of the budget. Make sure really that your budget is well justified in terms of the activities you will carry out. It's realistic and it's in line with the needs of your partners, so that you will really spend the budget in line with the activities you will carry out then later on in the project implementation.
Thank you very much, Ilaria, for being with us in the studio and answering all the questions. And thank you also to my colleagues, Anne and Ramona, who were answering the questions in the chat, to communication team supporting the technical aspects of this webinar, and to all participants who were very active and keeping us busy with many very important and good questions. As a reminder to you, we will have all the materials of this webinar published on our website, so you will be able to check the presentations and the videos on our website. In the there is a specific section dedicated on project development and online tools, where you can check different sections, your project relevance. What is very important tool we offer, it's ask for feedback, and we would like to invite you to use this service and support we provide on our side. It means that you can describe your idea and ask for the detailed feedback, and then Secretariat will get back in touch, will get back to you, providing a detailed idea on a detailed feedback on your project idea. We also have upcoming online Q&A sessions designed for the ones who will still have questions after this week. So on the 6th of May and the 20th of May at 10 a.m. Central European summertime, Paris time, you can join the online Q&A hour to submit your questions, and there our colleagues will be there to answer the questions that were submitted in advance, and also the questions you will be answering live during this session. Tomorrow we have the last webinar from our series on project communication, and I hope that you will be there and you are also eager to learn about communication as you were eager to learn about the budget and other topics we covered this week. So with this information, I would like to wish you a good day and hope to see you also tomorrow. And good luck preparing your project application. Bye-bye and see you tomorrow.